The first four of these elements make up about 99% of the mass of most cells. Additional elements, however, are also essential to the growth of organisms. The simple things you can do to help protect the earth are reduce, reuse, and recycle. Cut down on what you threw away. Volunteer for cleanups in your community. Educate. Conserve water. Choose sustainable. Shop wisely. Use long-lasting light bulbs. Plant a tree. Ecosystem is a geographic area where plants, animals, and other organisms, as well as weather and landscape, work together to form a bubble of life. Ecosystems contains biotic or living parts, as well as abiotic factors or non-living parts. Biotic factors include plants, animals, and other organisms. Ecosystem is a community of living organisms, plants, animals, and microbes. In a particular area, the term eco refers to a part. Ecosystem. Science is the study of interrelationship among the living organism, physical features, biochemical processes, natural phenomena, and human activities in ecological communities. Within a given area, living and non-living interact with each other. Ecosystems. The interactive system of living and non-living organisms in a specific location change slowly over time. When new plants and animals arrive in an area, they either thrive or struggle. Thriving species sometimes displace native species. When this happens, the system as a whole begins to change. Natural ecosystem can be broadly classified into two types, namely terrestrial and aquatic ecosystem. Terrestrial ecosystems are found only on landforms. Terrestrial ecosystems are further divided into four different categories: forest, desert, grassland, and mountain. Aquatic ecosystems exist in water. Healthy ecosystems clean our water, purify our air, maintain our soil, regulate the climate, recycle nutrients, and provide us with food. They provide raw materials and resources for medicine and other purposes. They are at the foundation of all civilization and sustain our economies. The ocean is the planet's largest ecosystem, regulating the climate and providing livelihoods for billions. A natural ecosystem is the result of interaction between organisms and the environment, and it does not need assistance for humans. They are self-sustaining. Few examples include deserts, forests, oceans, lakes, and etc. An ecosystem can be categorized into its abiotic constituents, including minerals, climate, soil, water, sunlight, and all other non-living elements, and its biotic constituents, consisting of all its living members. Linking the constituents together are two major forces: the flow of energy through the ecosystem. the cycling of nutrients within the ecosystem. Ecosystems vary in size. Some are small enough to be contained within single water droplets, while others are large enough to encompass entire landscape and region. Worldwide zone of deep ocean waters about 3,000 to 13,000 feet, 1,000 to 4,000 meters below the surface. It is inhabited by a wide variety of marine forms including eels, fishes, mollusks, and others. The fundamental source of energy in almost all ecosystems is radiant energy from the sun. The energy of sunlight is used by the ecosystems, autotrophic or self-sustaining organisms. That is, those that can make their own food, consisting largely of green vegetation. These organisms are capable of photosynthesis. They can use the energy of sunlight to convert carbon dioxide and water into simple energy-rich carbohydrates. The autotrophs use the energy stored within the simple carbohydrates to produce the more complex organic compounds such as proteins, lipids, and starches that maintain the organism life processes. The autotrophic segment of the ecosystem is commonly referred to as the producer level. Organic matter generated by autotrophs directly or indirectly sustains heterotrophic organisms. Heterotrophs are the consumers of ecosystem. They cannot make their own food. They use, rearrange, and ultimately decompose the complex organic material built up by the autotrophs. All animals and fungi are heterotrophs, as are most bacteria and many other microorganisms. The producer level, which is made up of autotrophy, the primary consumer level, which is composed of the organisms that feed on producers, the secondary consumers level, which is composed of those organisms that feed on primary consumers, and so on. Together, the autotrophs of heterotrophs form various trophic feeding levels and ecosystems. The movement of organic matter and energy from the producer level through various consumers levels makes up a food chain. For example, a typical food chain in a grassland might be grass. This is what we call producer, the grass. And the consumers are, for example, mouse, the primary consumer, snake, secondary consumer, hook, tertiary consumer. Actually, in many cases, the food chains of the ecosystems biologically community overlap and interconnect, forming an ecologist called a food web. The final link in all food chains is made up of decomposers. Those heterotrophs, such as escaping birds and mammals, insects, fungi, and bacteria, that break down dead organisms and organic waste into smaller and smaller components, which can later be used by producers as nutrients. A food chain in which the primary consumers feed on living plants is called a grazing pathway, and a food chain in which the primary consumers feed on dead plant matter is known as detritus pathway. Both pathways are important in accounting for the energy budget of the ecosystem. Nutrient cycling. Nutrients are chemicals, elements, and compounds that organisms must obtain for their surroundings, for growth and the sustenance of life. Although autotrophs obtain nutrients primarily from the soil, while heterotrophs obtain nutrients primarily from other organisms. The cells of each are made up primarily of 6 major elements that occur in similar proportions in all life forms. These elements: hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur. The first 4 of these elements make up about 99% of the mass of most cells. Additional elements, however, are also essential to the growth of organisms. Form the core: protoplasm, that is the semi-fluid substance that makes up a cell's cytoplasm and nucleus of organisms. Calcium and other elements help to form cellular support structures, such as shells, internal or external skeletons, and cell walls. Chlorophyll molecules, which allow photosynthetic plants to convert solar energy into chemical energy, are chains of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen compounds built around a magnesium ion. These bioelements combine with one another to form a wide variety of chemical compounds. They occur in organisms in a higher proportions than they do in the environment, because organisms capture them, concentrating and combining them during metabolism and death. As a result, these essential nutrients alternate between inorganic and organic states as they rotate through their respective biochemical cycles: the carbon cycle, the oxygen cycle, the nitrogen cycle, and the water cycle. These cycles can include all or part of the following environmental spheres: the atmospheres, which is made up of largely of gases, including water vapor; the lithosphere, which encompasses the soil and the entire solid crust of Earth; the hydrosphere, which include lakes, rivers, oceans, groundwater, frozen water, along with the atmosphere water vapor; and the biosphere, which includes all living things and overlaps with each of the other environmental spheres. A portion of the elements are bound up in limestone, and in the minerals of other rocks are unavailable to organisms. The slow processes of weathering and erosions eventually release these elements to enter the cycle. For most of the major nutrients, however, organisms not only intercept the elements moving through the biospheres, but they actually drive the biochemical cycles. The movements of nutrients through the biosphere is different from the transfer of energy because where areas energy flows through the biosphere and cannot be reused, elements are recycled. For example, the same atoms of carbon and nitrogen may, over the course of eons, move repeatedly between organisms. The atmosphere, the soil, and the oceans. Carbon released as a carbon dioxide by an animal may remain in the atmosphere by 5 or 10 years before being taken up by another organism, or it may cycle almost immediately back into a neighboring plant and be used during photosynthesis. Carbon cycle. Atmosphere contains 1% of global carbon. Ocean contains 71% global carbon. Greenhouse effect. Solar energy passes through the atmosphere, warming the Earth. Some of the sun's energy is reflected back into the space. Greenhouse gases in the atmosphere trap some of the heat. Phosphorus cycle. Rocks contains phosphorus in the form of phosphates, withering of phosphate from rocks, leaching phosphates in soil, plants and animals, bacteria. Ecosystem produces includes fruit, pure drinking water, food crops, species, fiber, hydroelectric energy, medicinal plants. Healthy ecosystem also provides a service and perform functions such as purified water, fresh air, maintaining soil fertility and wildlife habitats, pollination, nutrient cycling, mitigating flood and drought, providing storage sites for carbon. A standing crop is measured as the biomass or the mass of living organisms or the numbers in a unit area. Pyramid showing organisms at various trophic levels. Secondary carnivores, primary carnivores, herbivores, producers. The sun is the only source of energy for all ecosystems on Earth. The national list of movement. All communities undergo constant changes in compositions and structure with changes in environmental condition. Climate community is in near equilibrium with the environment. The climax community is the forest. Ecological pyramid is a graphic representation of an ecological parameter such as number of individuals, amount of biomass, or amount of energy present at different trophic levels in an ecosystem. Primary productivity is expressed in terms of weight per unit, area and time of energy produced by unit area and time. Primary productivity varies from one ecosystem to another. It categorized by gross primary productivity, net primary productivity. Is the total energy fixed by primary produces as biomass through photosynthetic activity by unit area by unit to time. Decomposition in an ecosystem. Rate of decomposition depends on chemical composition of detritus, temperature, soil moisture. The rate of decomposition is faster when the temperature is warm and the environment is moist. The glucose that produced is converted into starch to the storage of plants or may be combined into other nutrients such as nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur to produce other complex molecules such as protein, nucleic acid, and biomass stored. Biomass expressed in terms of mass per unit area. Therefore, the amount of biomass per unit area by plant through photosynthetic is called primary production. If they composed or did not exist, the earth would be covered the layer by dead flies about 20 feet deep within a month. Decomposers their very important role in keeping our environment clean. They break down in complex organic matter and convert it into simple inorganic substances like water, carbon dioxide, and nutrients. This natural process is known as decomposition. The raw material of decomposition is which comprises dead and decaying plants. Remains such as leaves, branches, flowers, roots, dead animals remain including fecal matter. Decomposition involves the series of important steps, namely process of decomposition, fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, humidification, mineralization. Of these steps, fragmentation, leaching, and catabolism occur simultaneous on the detritus. During fragmentation, the detritus broken down into smaller particles by detritivores, which are organisms that feed on and break down undead plants or animals' matter while returning essential nutrients to the environment. Finally, during mineralization, the last steps of decomposition, 7 microbes action, the humus degraded and release and inorganic nutrients into the soil. Both humidification and mineralization occurs inside the soil. However, the process of decomposition is affected by several factors. It is primarily an oxygen-requiring process and the chemical composition of detritus, along with the climatic factors as the temperature of soil moisture affects up to the rate of decomposition. After healing a man possessed by evil spirits, Jesus Christ left the Gentile region around the Sea of Galilee to return to the Jewish towns. When Jesus Christ got into the boat again and crossed the sea, a large crowd went and gathered around him. As he stood on the shore, Jairus, a synagogue ruler, was also there. Upon seeing Christ, Jairus went over to him, knelt at his feet, and started begging for help. From the book of Mark, chapter 5, verse 1, just take a look down to earth, 22